How's it going, everybody? This is Brian for Pop Culture Crossing, and today we are talking about the Merc with the Mouth's own film, Deadpool. So I was originally introduced to the character in 2006 with the video game Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I really like the character's style, his fighting style, his katanas and guns, and his healing factor, and just the way that he engaged in dialogue with both his team and his enemies. And to me, it became very clear that Peter Parker was not the only superhero who wisecracked his enemies while they were fighting each other, and who also just kind of made this banter with his teammates. However, there are many versions of Deadpool across various mediums, and this one in Ultimate Alliance was a pretty light and fun interpretation. However, there are more adult and mature interpretations of the character, such as in his 2013 video game. And once the movie Deadpool was greenlit for its R rating, it became very clear that the more mature interpretation was going to be adopted. And this was evident in the Red Band trailers and just the film's marketing campaign, which was brilliant. So, what did someone who became a fan of the character's different interpretations think of this film? Well, you're in the right place. So, the biggest area of concern I had of the movie was its pacing. The opening sequence was incredible, filled with this great action, and it was this really gripping, 10 minutes or so. And it's like, wow, keep this going because this is awesome. But the film utilizes this flashback, exposition, narrative, storytelling element, and it takes viewers to and from elements in the present and the past. And it does this constantly. It's not like, okay, here's a 20-minute flashback scene for his origin or something. Nope, this is a constant flip and flop throughout the entire movie. So I do respect them for trying to do this more nuanced approach to storytelling that differs from the, traditional linear narrative telling device, but this style definitely did not fit the movie. And the scenes in the present were the best, in my opinion, and the scenes in the past were just where the movie came screeching to a halt, and it's like, get us out of here, let's go back to the present day elements. And because of this, it really felt like there were two different movies fighting themselves in the same movie. And, I really just like the present day elements. If you trim out all the other stuff, maybe add or keep a little bit about the experiment that gave Wade Wilson or Deadpool his powers, then that'd be good. But pretty much all the other stuff you can kind of throw out, and then you'll have a good movie there. So, as advertised, Deadpool and its content is very mature, and it's definitely not intended for younger viewers and audiences, or those who are repulsed by nonstop, mindless, puerile toilet humor. So it definitely felt awkward being in the theater, knowing that there were kids with their parents there, because it's like, a lot of the stuff in here is, not good. And there's especially one joke, which I don't even know how the screenwriters and the production team could even try communicating this as a joke in the first place, which really just fell flat in a gross way. And that's when Wade Wilson, or Deadpool, is first introduced to his soon-to-be girlfriend, Vanessa. And, they're flirting, and she starts talking about how she had been molested, and she's, joking about it. And it's like, in the theater, there were just crickets. It's like, yeah, no one thought this was funny. That's disgusting. What in the world are you guys thinking? Really just cringeworthy indeed. But in terms of some other elements of it, not just dialogue, I did enjoy the combat of Deadpool and Deadpool's famous fourth wall breaking, or his use of asides. That's something that he's really known for as a character, and that was well done and felt natural. And this also complemented his combat commentary, which was pretty humorous, and was a good complement to the combat itself. Overall, Deadpool's performances are great. Ryan Reynolds does a stellar job with his interpretation of Wade Wilson, or Deadpool. The same character that you saw in the promotional material for the movie is transplanted directly into a feature-length film. Also, speaking to the film's production design, Deadpool's costume is incredible and just mind-blowingly realized. It's great to see whenever Reynolds is wearing it and whenever that's on screen. And just overall, in terms of iconic superhero movie characters, Reynolds is definitely on par with Hugh Jackman, Robert Downey Jr., and Chris Evans. However, at times, it seemed like there were two versions of Wade Wilson, like there were two different versions of the movie. And not surprisingly, this was because of the present day elements and the past elements. So in the present, the character was this great anti-hero who, though incredibly violent and vulgar, had this likable nature. But in the past, Wade Wilson, particularly before he met his girlfriend Vanessa, was just a jerk and pretty unlikable. And granted, this does have a positive element in that you can really see this character arc and his development from this unlikable character to a likable anti-hero, since that's a thing. But at times, more often than not in these past sequences, Wade Wilson was repulsive, and this did not help that the pacing of the movie screeched to a halt in this portion either. So there were major problems in that regard. So even though Ryan Reynolds was the star, he was well supported with the other cast members. Morena Baccarin delivered a great performance as his girlfriend Vanessa. It was a shame that we didn't get to see her become the comic book character Copycat. However, on the positive, that helped the movie from being predictable. But it was disappointing that most of Vanessa's scenes were in the flashback sequences. TJ Miller's Weasel was also pretty well performed. Some of his dialogue, a big portion of which had been seen in the trailers and other promotional material, had already been viewed by the audiences, and its content was honestly just really far-fetched. The obscenities were so prevalent that it just made his lines incredibly illogical and mindless, and became evident that his dialogue in particular, and some of Wade's and Deadpool's actions, were just an attempt to be as boorish as he could with the R rating, and that definitely stood out as a viewer. And it's like, okay, guys, we know that you have your R rating, so, good for you. The X-Men characters in Deadpool, namely Stefan Kapikic's Colossus and Brianna Hildebrand's Negasonic Teenage Warhead, provide a great balance to the overall cast, as they offer this new, fresh breath whenever they're on screen. And their presence is typically accompanied by this sharp, witty dialogue. And they particularly have these great lines that they levy against Fox Studios and the X-Men film franchise. And that was quite enjoyable and very well done. Additionally, those two characters deliver enjoyable action sequences, often alongside Deadpool. And again, that's in the present sequences, so those were very well done and enjoyable to watch. Ed Skrein's Ajax is the antagonist of the movie, and his performance really effectively juxtaposes Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, and you can really see the balance here with the protagonist, anti-hero, and antagonist spectrum, and that's a lot of fun to watch. Ajax is a very loathsome character, so it's great fun seeing the two go head-to-head. Gina Carano's character Angel Dust is sadly forgettable. Skrein's performance really just overshadowed her, and it did not help that Deadpool is a movie that's really reliant on dialogue, and Angel Dust is effectively a mute character in the movie. She really only has a few words, just mere words in the entire film, so it seemed like the odds were stacked against Carano in terms of her character being memorable. The cinematography was superb, and especially in terms of the action sequences, the excellent framing and camera angles really accentuated the crazy, hectic, and brutally violent action sequences. as well as Deadpool's costume. And Deadpool's fourth wall breaking also just really felt natural and did not feel stilted at all. The movie's production value here and their set design is impressive, and the set pieces look amazing, especially this unnamed helicarrier in the third act. However, this is the 21st century, and it is a big studio tentpole film, so there was CGI utilized, nevertheless, I felt like there were elements where the CGI and just the overall dialogue, notwithstanding, could have been better edited or polished a little bit more before the final release. And some of the scenes, particularly with CGI and kind of this disparity here, was that, so Wade Wilson goes through this experiment, or he's kind of forced to, and that's what gives him his powers and his healing factor. It's very similar to Wolverine. And he does have these incredible superpowers as a result, but his entire body is horribly scarred. And, there was some points where he and Weasel are talking, and Weasel just straight up makes fun of him for how he looks and just graphically describes in these, very puerile ways, Wade's appearance and his scarring. But there was kind of, in some scenes, Wade's scars really look like, oh wow, that's like a superhero experiment result or something. But in other times, it was more kind of like photorealistic, I guess, and he looked like a severe burn victim. But this wasn't addressed in terms of TJ Miller's Weasel's dialogue and comments on it. He wasn't like, oh yeah, you're a superhero now and you look like X, Y, and Z. He's just like, your face looks like X, Y, and Z. And it's like, yeah, that's not cool. That's not sensitive at all. And that's going to definitely rub people the wrong way. So be aware of that as well. So in conclusion, I initially thought that Deadpool was a fairly good movie. Honestly, it did grow on me a little bit more after I had seen it. And this was in terms of the present day sequences. They just really need to cut out the past sequences and you have a really good movie. And when I watch it again, that's how I'm going to watch it. I'm going to skip through the past. But, I really just felt like the language and some of the other explicit content really should have been trimmed down for the final product. But I did enjoy the nuances and respected what it did regarding fourth wall breaking and action sequences in comic book movies. We often think that, oh, it's comic book movies, people are fine, the devastation's fixed the next day or whatever. But it's like, no, it's still incredibly violent combat. And I thought that element was very well communicated in Deadpool. The film interpretation of Deadpool here was definitely a different interpretation of the overall character to the one to whom I was introduced in 2006. And I knew this going into it, but I still just personally prefer the lighter, more kind of fun Deadpool. But despite this difference, it's still a relatively enjoyable film to the appropriate audiences. Like I said, those pacing elements and the dialogue really just weigh it down and act as an anchor, and I hope that they kind of realize that for the second movie. So, if you've seen Deadpool, let me know what your thoughts were about the movie in the comments below or on social media channels, and we'll keep the conversation going there. How does Deadpool rank in terms of your favorite comic book movies? I want to know your picks there. Did you think that the pacing and the flashback sequences in Deadpool worked and were fluid, or did you think like I did, where it really brought things to a halt and created this, big pacing problem? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that. And also, I want to know what your most anticipated upcoming superhero movie is. So let me know in the comments there, and we'll keep the conversation going. If you prefer to read and want to check out our written review, head over to popculturecrossing.com, and you'll find that there. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. As always, if you enjoyed our content, we appreciate it if you would share, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.